Where are my Dolly Parton lovers? Today I'm going to try Dolly Parton's Southern Style Coconut Cake Mix. And the way I have done this is I have actually followed the directions on the back of the package to make the cake itself, using 4 eggs, butter, and milk. But today I'm using this mix to make a Southern Style Coconut Poke Cake. So following the easy prep recipe, I just added the mix to a pot with 1 cup of milk, 4 large eggs, and 1/2 cup of melted butter. Mixing as directed. So just to start, I add the package of cake mix to a large pot. Once I have this added, I'm going to go ahead and add in that milk as directed from the package. Next up, I'm going to add the eggs, breaking them in a separate container just to make sure all the eggs are perfect and no shells or anything gets in there. So just breaking 1 egg at a time, adding it to the mix. And immediately upon opening this cake mix and pouring it in, I could already tell there was a different texture to it than your typical cake mix. You can tell it uses a different type of flour, and it almost appears to have a little bit of a cornmeal texture to it. So now after I have added the milk and eggs, I'm going to go ahead and mix it together just to incorporate everything, making sure all the eggs are blended in. And as I'm doing this, I'm going to go ahead and add in that butter melted as the instructions on the package suggest. So it's quite simple. You just add in your 1 cup of milk, the eggs, mix that together with the blender, while at the same time adding in your butter, just to make sure you don't cook your eggs. And I blended it according to the package. You can tell the consistency changes and the batter gets much thicker and also begins to fluff just a little bit. So once the mixture has been blended, as you can tell here, it is very, very thick. I added it to a 9x13 pan, making sure to get all of the batter out, and then smoothing it out so that everything is smooth, even, and there are no high or low spots of batter in the pan. So it's as simple as just pouring the mix into your pan, smoothing it out until it is nice and even, then placing it into the oven and baking it as directed on the box. As you can see, as it is baking, the texture is much different. It does not look like your traditional cake. It has a denser top that, to me personally, almost feels like a biscuit. Then taking a toothpick, you want to just check to make sure it is completely cooked, that the toothpick comes out clean. As you can see, the edges have pulled away from the pan. That is another good sign to know when your cake is done. But you always want to take that toothpick to double check. So now it is time to make this into a coconut poke cake. And these are the ingredients that I have used. So first things first, however, you want to poke holes into the cake with a wooden spoon handle. Basically, almost to the bottom of the cake. You don't want to go to the bottom completely and poke a hole through. You want it just enough so that you can feel the cake collapsing. Next up, go ahead with a spoon and add in 1 can of sweetened condensed milk into the holes. This does take some time. I like to make sure that I'm getting it into each of the holes. So just be patient with this step. If you do choose to rush it and pour the whole can, try to smooth it out. It won't really go down into the holes. It will go off of the sides, and you really will be left with a dry cake. The edges may be moist, but you will have a cake that is very dry in the center and not your traditional poke cake. Once that has been added, go ahead and add in 1 can of your cream of coconut. Doing the same thing with a spoon, slowly drizzling this mixture into each of the holes. Basically what you're trying to do is get a nice filling into each of the holes so that it will spread out into the cake, making it very, very moist and not dense and dry. Next, when you're finished with that, place it into the refrigerator so that it can chill. Really, the longer you chill it, the better. Once it has chilled, then you can go ahead and add your whipped topping on top of that cake. And since it has chilled, the cake has firmed up, everything has set, and you won't run the risk of pulling that top layer of cake off as you smooth out the whipped topping. And this does take 1 container of the whipped topping. You can definitely add more if you would like. However, I find that this is just enough for this size cake. So just take your time, smooth out the whipped topping so that each bite will have that perfect layer. And you don't have big blobs in some spots and bare spots in others. But as you can tell, this cake is very rich, but at the same time, it is very delicious. Now it is time to get flaked coconut to sprinkle on top. If you wish to omit this, that is completely fine, but I have chosen to add sweetened coconut to the top of mine. Once you have that added, it is best to cover it and chill it in the refrigerator. The longer you chill it, the better it will be. However, if you have at least 1 to 2 hours, it is still going to be delicious, but at least 8 hours will get you the best flavor possible. Your cake will be nice and moist. Everything will be spread out through the cake. And you will have the perfect coconut poke cake. So there you have a delicious Southern Appalachian coconut poke cake using Dolly Parton's Southern style coconut cake mix. Personally, this cake mix was not my favorite. It did not have a lot of coconut flavor in the cake mix itself. Nonetheless, it still made for a delicious poke cake, but in the future, I probably would not use it again. I would go for a traditional yellow cake mix. So I hope you've enjoyed this recipe. If you give it a try, let me know what you think.